he has to win with black in order to level the score. It was really, really impressive game from Shakhriyar Mamedyarov, the previous one. And the feeling is that Shakhriyar somehow did better job at analyzing this Italian.
Right, and he feels these nuances really well, and I mean, he played overall the whole game at a very, very high level, so it was not exactly clear where Maxime misplayed the game, and the second game of the Blitz section has started. Now it's all up to Maxime.
Okay, e6, b6 makes sense.
So I would imagine he keeps some options available to go at some moment, perhaps some Dutch ideas like f7, f5. Everything is still possible.
So Shah goes with knight f3, knight c3. So now it switches to some sort of a Nimzo setups, a3 to prevent bishop b4, and still black goes with g6.
And still Maxime found a way to play the ground fault.
Well, in a way, yeah. Later on, he might go for d5, yeah. Unless Shah goes d5 himself. That's what he does. E takes, c takes, bishop to g7.
Okay, but not essential. This is not a ground fault. So Shah decided to stop it and play d4, d5 himself.
Well, but he's already not sure what to do next. And let me go and say that it seems black's going to get a very comfortable position. Castle short, rook e8, castles, and then what? And then you go for... no, I thought you played with c5.
Essentially, we have reached this position, and white has made a useless move a2, a3, because this setup is quite a known idea, and usually white reaches it with the pawn on a2, and he already has access for playing knight e4, and presumably it's... worse for black, but now white has played this a2, a3, and Maxime correctly switched to the whatever, I mean, you call this line, I don't know, to be honest, but it's supposedly good for black.
So knight a6, bishop to f4.
And Maxime has managed to rack up already extra minute on the clock after playing out the opening very quickly, and he has exactly what he wanted. He has a sharp position. There is no dry opening, and
yeah, you cannot really easily simplify with white, even though of course white objectively should have no problems, even though he, well, perhaps didn't have the best way to play. It's not the best way to play this position, but it shouldn't be all that problematic. So c6. Now, of course, the crucial question is what happens. I mean, can white take on, well, simply take on c6 and try to simplify the position as much as possible?
That's a good question, because essentially, how do you play for a draw? I mean,
well,
we are used to we are usually taught that you play for the win by playing for the win, right? I'm sorry, why?
play for a draw by
making, correct.
Making like all the good moves. Yeah, and it was Maxime in the studio. Remember, after he equalized in the second classical game, he said himself that the feeling was that I have to keep tension. I shouldn't let my opponent simplify the position and then just play on. Here, however, well, queens come off the board, and Shah is trying to trade the rooks as well. Knight to d5 played.
Well, I'm not sure I like that, unless knight takes on d5 forces for black to go for the isolated pawn structure, and that was quite quickly, to be honest.
Well, I believe his point is that he takes with the pawn and both e2 and b2 are hanging.
So c takes on d5, I would imagine knight e4 and bishop takes on d4 being his point. Or perhaps after knight e4, knight c5
maybe
with
knight
a fork
c5
idea.
first, and then, yeah, the threat is to... But you know what? There is a problem with knight c5 that white seemingly can play e3.
Right.
Well, anyway, he takes with the pawn. I don't really think Shah has other option than knight d4, so knight d4 is played. And yeah, knight to c5. Yeah, point being, black wants to capture on d4 and go knight b3 with the fork on both rooks. Bishop e3. Don't quite get it, to be honest. Bishop e3, bishop takes.
And where's the pawn?
What's happening? Knight b3, and then e2 pawn is gone. Well, I don't know what happens to Shah, But it's...
That was strange. I mean, this was the whole idea for Maxime to take on d4, play knight b3 and capture the pawn on e2, and essentially...
Yeah, maybe that's not over, because after rook e2...
Well, it's definitely not over, but
I believe
something was missed.
Something like bishop f3 followed by bishop d3 might be still... but by rook d3 it might be still enough compensation. Well, Maxime decided to take on d4 first. Rook takes, and rook takes e2. Well, at least Maxime has got some chances. He's a pawn up.
Exactly, and now it is Shakhriyar who has to play very accurately. It's not even clear if he has any real compensation for the pawn. I don't think so.
Well, he doesn't have any real compensation. The fact is, it's very hard to win with black, even if, let's say, I just put bishop f3. Sooner or later, this rook has to leave the second rank, right? In this case, I know. Well, actually, might play rook c2, because I thought bishop d1, but in this case, it's rook c4. Bishop d1 being very awkward move.
Well, bishop e3 was a strange move. I mean, it must be some sort of a hallucination, because, like you mentioned, e3 actually
e3
right here
would have been
made more
fine,
sense.
yeah, because this white doesn't lose a pawn.
Probably there is some possibility for black to continue here, something like knight e6, I don't know, but still...
Yeah, but that's the game.
That's essentially equal, right?
The material is equal, yeah. And now, yeah, bishop f3, rook c2, bishop e4 is played. Ah, well. Bishop e4, nice resource, and as I said, white will insist on black leaving the second rank, so rook c5, other rook to d1.
But maybe this is just a draw, is
King
it? I
to
mean,
g7.
On b4, is this? No, there is no draw, because the pawn on a3 essentially is hanging. So you want to play b4, then you want to take the pawn on d5.
Oh, you mean b4, this,
yeah, rook c3 is the
d5.
problem. But maybe this is a draw.
There is also other problem. Rook c7, you can't take on d5 because of a pin.
All right.
So it's not yet, well, the full simplification. Well, so Shak managed to get into trouble. King g7, rook d... What is it?
It's rook d3.
I know. No, yeah. No, b4 was not played. Yeah, that's the position.
So,
Rook
I mean,
to d3.
Shakhriyar wants to play b4, then he wants to play bishop takes on d5, and after your mentioned idea, doubling the rooks on the d5 for black, then he
also,
plays...
the rook is defended. Yeah, so say black goes h5. b4, first of all, there is no rook c3, and now if the rook goes to c7, bishop d5, rook d7, bishop to c4, and
seemingly white
holds,
escapes.
yeah. White holds. But still, for a time being, it is an extra pawn for Maxime Vachier-Lagrave. a7, a5 was played. And what did Shak do? Go back to d4.
I mean, he has nothing better to do anyway. He has to just sit and watch, and he's simply down a pawn, and black is going to activate his king, sooner or later bringing king f6, king e6, essentially to the center and then to the queen side. So it's going to be a very unpleasant defense for Shak.
Wait a sec. Bishop c6. Does he allow bishop b4 here? Seems like b4 is the move. So now, after rook c3, I assume rook c3 will be played, right?
Then and bishop takes on d5?
Take. I thought take first. Yeah, rook c3. Takes on a5, takes on d5. And this is a well-known rook endgame, right? Which is a draw.
Are you sure? But because you don't manage to put the rook behind the pawn, I'm not so sure about this one.
Well, no, it is a draw. I mean, you can wait, or you can go rook d6, and
right.
As you can see, Maxime decided even not to go for it. After bishop d5, he goes bishop a4.
You must be right. He realized probably that this endgame is a draw, and white still has this pin on the d file, something to worry about. So how do you play here? Rook d3, presumably.
Does it mean there is no rook d3? Yeah, there was no possibility to... maybe he could.
I'm sorry, you have included already exchanging the pawns on a5, which actually happened right now.
Which didn't happen, yes, sorry.
It just happened.
Rook c3, bishop a4... what was it? Rook c3, bishop d5 here. Yeah, bishop a4 here. Rook takes, ba5, ba5. So still a pawn down for Mamedyarov.
And the bishops are on the boards, so essentially, probably Maxime is actually winning.
Let's see. Let's see. He once again has rook endgame. Seemingly he has. No, he doesn't have the
No,
rook
he doesn't
endgame.
have. I mean,
I thought it's, say, check. Here takes on d5, but it would have been wrong. No. So instead, bishop b5 played, rook to b2, bishop c6, rook back to d2.
So essentially, I mean, black doesn't want to trade the bishops.
What's that? Rook a4? Oh, funny move. Very nice resource. Because
wow, that's a nice way trying to force to the bishop endgame with an extra pawn for the black, the past a pawn.
Well, so you can, essentially you can do this, rook a2. But then your rook is placed in the worst possible square.
And it is actually going to happen.
Yeah, so it is what's happening.
Still the best bet for Shakhriyar, trying to go for the rook endgame because the bishop endgame seemed to be losing.
And this would have been hopeless, right? But with rook on d5, it's not yet hopeless because black can't really switch to having the rook behind.
And Maxime obviously is keeping the bishops on the board. He doesn't want to find it out. Is this rook endgame drawn or not? So if you're not sure, there's a simple rule: avoid it. And it is exactly what he does.
He has found bishop b5, bishop b3, rook a8, bishop a4. Is that what has happened? But this has to be absolutely lost.
Well, this is easily winning for black, isn't it?
We can watch this one, the rest from a camera view, because I believe black has a winning position, and we will see the Armageddon. At least I don't see it not happening. And Maxime is
blitzing it out. Presumably he knows this should be winning. I mean, with this pass pawn, rook behind the pass pawn, and some targets. I mean, I'm not...
Well, still, you see, rook to e4, check, cutting the king, and then king takes care of those pawns, and black king, of course, has to return to the king side. Rook to e4.
And then presumably the black rook somehow joins the action at the king side and eats a couple of pawns, so essentially black should be up something at the king side and winning the game. I assume this is winning. I'm not so sure, but
yeah,
feels like winning.
Should be winning. But what you don't want to do, you don't want to play f5 here, right? Because g takes, and then you are left with those f and h pawns. It might be kind of awkward.
I think Maxime is looking for ways for the rook to join the action at the king side. Something like rook c7. Rook c7, rook c3, trade off the a3 pawn for the f3 pawn.
Yeah, then of course it will be completely winning. Yeah.
But I mean, how do you avoid this? Rook c7 activates the rook immediately unless there is something else for white. So you can see Maxime is thinking. He feels it should be winning. So he realizes the importance of this game, of course. I mean, if you don't win it, it's all over, and he does play it.
1.5 minutes. Rook to c7 indeed was played. Point being, when you take the pawn, it's rook c3. If you don't take the pawn, what do you do then? Rook e3 perhaps.
Yeah, rook e3
e3 perhaps. Rook back to a7, rook e4, f5. Yeah, so he does play f5.
Look at that. And Shakhriyar was actually expecting f5, and he replied very quickly with rook e8.
This would be a huge save. If somehow Mamedyarov managed to save this, it will be a huge save. So takes f4. And now he's ready to go rook e5. And if this happens, I'm not sure if black is winning. So black has to prevent this rook e5 from happening. And also, Maxime is left with the h and f pawns, so one of the pawns might be gone.
Wow, is this even winning or not? Because, right, you said, I mean, rook e5 is a big move incoming. And if you play rook a5, I mean, how do you progress from here?
Yeah, well, white can go h5, then put the pawn on h6, attack the h7. Yeah, that's
so essentially,
really tough.
If I'm black, I would be thinking about something like rook a5, king d3.
Rook a6, but then now it's rook e5, and how do you win? Rook h6.
He's just going to try to rely on the h pawn.
On the h pawn, but this should be a draw. Rook takes f5, king takes a3, right?
I'm not so sure. The king is so far away. The king is so far away.
The king is far away, but it's an h pawn, it's not like a normal pawn.
And, I mean, white still has the f pawn, right?
White still has f pawn alive, yeah. So you take a3, king goes there, rook f7,
And if pawn goes for,
and
is
F5,
this a draw?
and F6, you go F6, yeah, then you're threatening Rook H7, F7.
I'm not so
I
sure
think
this is a
it's
draw.
just
Are you sure? I don't know. It feels like some study-like endgame. I mean, it's very difficult to jump in immediately and say it's a draw. But look at that. I mean, Shakhriyar has only 14
King
seconds.
F5. What's King F5? Now it's a time to move with the
7
king.
seconds for Shakhriyar. King B3.
Okay, this allows black to pick the pawn and also to cut the king.
So H4 must be moving
No, King
forward.
G6. I think you go King G6, yes. You take on F6. Right, you take on F6, and white, white has to come up very quickly with the frontal attack.
Rook D6, right?
Yeah, Rook D6. You cut
the king is cut off too far. Rook D6 is played
D6.
on the board.
I think it's winning, yeah, because it's either H4, Rook A8, yeah, but this time it's just H4.
Yeah, this is just winning.
This is winning.
I mean, Shakhriyar probably realizes it right now, and so does Maxime. The king inevitably goes to H1 followed by H2, then the rook goes to first rank, Rook G1, and essentially the white king is one row too far.
Yeah, with the king cut on, okay, Rook G4, you want to put your king on C2, otherwise it will be even easier for white.
So after H4, King C2, the last chance, no, I mean, yeah, this is over.
No, but now it's Rook D1, Rook G1.
Rook G1, this is essentially
nothing to talk
over.
about. Yeah, King C2 was the last try to keep the position, but yeah, but it's too late.
Wow.
That's too late, and well, the impossible seems possible with Maxime Vachier-Lagrave playing. So yet another comeback, and well, but what a game that was. I believe at some point it was like a complete draw after
Well,
Maxime
you have to give a lot of credit for Maxime, because he was in this situation the second time during this match. He had to fight back, and
Absolutely.
he did.
Not giving up.